just super excited to
I'm on it, y'all. See?
join us.
Yeah.
Hey.
What's up? Why not? What's up,
What's
man?
going on?
Why
Hold
not?
on.
It's been a busy day of live streams for you today, I realize.
Yeah.
It has been, yo. It's been like that ever since quarantine started. It's wild.
It's like out of nowhere you have all these friends now, you know?
I know, right? I thought they just watched me. I don't know if they actually cared about anything.
No, we care though. We do care, okay?
That's what's up. Hold on, let me set this up real quick. I don't want to
No
be too
problem,
close to
why
the
not?
I want to be like Rennie Harris. Yo, his interview was like this with y'all. We're just looking at Rennie's nostrils.
You know, our older folks have a harder time.
They're getting it, though. They're getting it.
Yo, how funny is that, though?
You know, he's like, I'm here. What am I supposed to do? And
They'd be like this. They'd be like,
Just looking at the screen.
like they talking to you, but they're looking like, they're like, yo, so,
Yo, it's on point, man. That's on point.
That's pretty on point. I mean, you know Rennie pretty well too, though, so you could go
We
there.
all can go there, right?
for sure, for sure. I be bagging on people even if I don't know them, and it's okay.
Hey, that's a good thing. Keep it real. That's what's great about you. Why not? So why not? Thank you for joining us. As you know, we've been having our versatile conversations as a way to like connect the youth in our communities to folks that they maybe heard of but don't quite know enough about. And then Lee and I really reaching out to them, just engage, especially with this whole COVID-19 pandemic, you know, trying to come up with creative platforms to inspire our youth. So you already know we're a nonprofit organization, and we have a versatile next generation that consists of 46 youth members. And Lee and I are so fortunate to have a big following of students. So again, it's just how do we just keep engaging in these conversations? And of course, when I was talking to Rennie and you're all up in the conversation, I'm like, oh my God.
Right away, we were like,
Why not needs to be in this?
Yeah.
Oh, that's tight. Yeah, I be trolling people's lives, you know.
You know, I think you and I have that in common because I've been doing that too.
You got to be in there just dropping crazy comments until they
It's just
recognize
good
you.
so people see, you know, and clearly everybody's doing this right now. It's nothing innovative or new, but yet how could we just, I wanted to make it more specific than just, you know, hey, what's the thought? Being more specific with interviews and hopefully 2 or 3 or 10, whatever, students be inspired by your story, you know?
That's what's up.
I think you're definitely a huge inspiration for us, let alone the community at large. So it's just a good way to catch up and also learn about you.
As well as you guys, an inspiration for me. Believe that. You remember when we met, do you?
What? You know what? I don't have a
You're gonna have to
vivid
refresh
memory
your
of
memory,
how we met.
I mean, it has to be in Philly. That's my first. Yes, okay, Philly
It
at
was.
Rennie's Illadelph Festival.
It was.
And it
But
was
I
either at like the Gathering or Studio Space when they were holding the classes. But
It was one of the classes
Okay.
first, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I remember
Yeah.
you. I have a memory more when he would have those panel discussions and you were up in the room.
Mm.
And for me, I wasn't as close to you. I kind of like just knew of you and I respected you. I'm like, oh my God, why not's here? And I just remember you just being like, that was my first light of you being a goofball kind of. Like I was like, oh, he's really outgoing and down to earth. And that's what I remember. But I don't remember like our first like in-depth, more conversation and exchange. That's where I was having a hard time remembering.
Yeah, I think, I'm trying to remember what class exactly where we were. I think it was Wiggles. Might have been Wiggles' class.
Wiggles,
You're
yeah.
probably
And then
right.
afterwards, we just talked for a bit, you know.
You know, that was like
the first
2005,
2006 or
2006 maybe.
2006.
Wow.
Because that was, I think, the year Wiggles came.
Yeah.
He came.
Because that was
2006.
And I remember
at least that year when we came. So yeah.
because that Illadelph Legends Festival was so unique at that time. There was nothing like it before, right?
Absolutely.
So that's where I met Wiggles and Paul Master Fable and taking class from even Dawn, though Dawn's from LA, but it was the way Rennie was able to captivate and get everybody together.
Yeah,
All the
Rennie
boogaloos,
was the pioneer of
Rocksteady.
Rennie was the pioneer of doing those kind of summer
He was ahead
dance
of his time.
intensive festivals, and now we just have it all over the world now. But shout out to Rennie again because he was ahead of his time on that one.
For sure. I don't know if enough people really know that about Rennie, you know. Rennie's done a lot of stuff. He's paved the way for a lot of us to do what we do now. And it was funny just being on live with Mansell and Sabela today, you know, the whole time. It's like that the way that Rennie was thinking about education has you know, sparked all of our ideas and what we're doing now. So it's like, you got to give him that credit. That's Renny Harris.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Papa Renny, I think he didn't know he was doing that, but yet he was still doing that, right? And how he's influenced us all, and that's what's so beautiful about it. I mean, I love that you started with Renny, because I think I try to email you just to give you a sense of what I think the conversation would go, but I'm also open to any direction. But I think it'd be a great moment right now to let to let our audience know, our students know, like, where are you from, really? Like, where did you grow up? Where are your parents from? I realized I would love that narrative, more of a personal background before we get to your dancing.
Yeah, that's cool, because I think too, like, a lot of people kind of start me off usually in like 05 when they first seen me publicly, because I didn't like dance outside of the tri-state area until probably about 05. But yeah, I was born in New Jersey. I was born in New Jersey, and I didn't move to Philly until I was about 19.
Okay.
But I had family, you know, closer to Philly. I had family from New York. My father's from the Bronx originally. My mom's from Brooklyn. When they had my sister, who's a couple years older than me, then they moved to Jersey, because they just believed that the school systems probably would have been a better bet for us in New Jersey. So that's why we moved there. But yeah, I got into dance. Like, when I think about like where that started, I have to give it up to my mom, 100%, because she danced at home. She was playing the records. She was dancing Lindy Hop that she learned from my father, and she did the hustle. That was her generation, you know. So, you know, coming from New York, all of that was just something that I've witnessed, I guess you could say, until I started just to begin my own journey with dance. And you know, seeing that at home, then going out into the public, seeing breaking in the street, like I would see it in New York at times. I remember, actually, it took me a while to figure this out, but when I first saw dance in the street, it was the Breeze team, and I didn't know who they were. But that's a street hitting squad. The Breeze team also are people that I think we don't hear about very often, but they held it down a lot in the street. They were also Dance for KRS-One around that time in the 90s. So, you know, when it's done publicly like that, that's when it gets more exposed. You know, for a lot of people, especially in my generation who started in the 90s, if you didn't know anybody who did it, you either saw it on television, which is not different than a lot of kids that are coming from the 2000 generation, right? There's a ton of B-boys that I think are really dope, who are young, that were like, yo, I learned dancing from the dance movies. I can't even name them. You know, the dance movies that came out in the 2000s. So it's like, you know, it's interesting. But yeah, that's kind of where it all started for me. I think when I started to see more, I sought it out more and realized that I needed to really do some research on it, man, because it was not a thing. It wasn't very popular, especially breaking in the 90s. You know, I saw a lot of boogaloo, popping, bass style dances. I mean, we had Michael Jackson, obviously, who motivated a lot of people. My mom was a Prince fan mainly, so I mostly started getting influence from seeing Prince, and then later on James Brown. So, yeah, I don't know where else I would start with that.
Really quick, I mean, because I feel like I'm here to get educated too. Could you give me a little more description on the Breeze team? I personally never heard of them. Yeah, are they from the East Coast, and what did they do, and who were the dancers?
Yeah, they're all New Yorkers, but they're just street hitters. You know, they were making money in the street. Some of them didn't even dance. A couple of them, I remember, they just did tricks. They flipped. They would smoke cigarettes and, like, you know, take the smoke and pop and wave and blow the cigarette smoke out. They did all types of stuff, and I think it was more, you know, based on just New York street hitting style. You know.
All right, that's dope. I mean, it caught my attention because, you know, his AK is Breeze Lee, so you see the breeze. I was like, oh.
Yup.
It's just good to just know it, and it's good. The only way for these things to be alive and to be in our history is to talk about it as it is. So for you to bring it up, I was like, wow, I personally had never heard of them. So that's just amazing to hear. Yeah. Because Renny's always schooling me on his perspective in that sense, you know. But
for sure.
And then of course with Mott Talk, with, you know, Buddha Stretch and Khalif and all of them, they got their own essence of how they grew up with the dance. But all these narratives are what matters, and it's what it brings everything together in that sense, right?
That's what's up. Yeah, definitely. For people watching, check them out. If you can I don't know if you can Google the Breeze Team, you might find anything, but also Float Committee was another name, and Breeze Team, and some members of Float Committee and Breeze Team would dance together. Wayne Blitz is another person who was breaking very often in the subways. So yeah, just a couple of
I'm
names for
taking
people to look
notes.
Yeah.
Y'all better be
up.
taking notes, everybody.
Yes, that's right.
Word.
We gotta like echo these names in different ways, whether we research them and just know because they are major contributions to what hip hop or street dance is today as it is. You know, it's from
Absolutely.
these dancers.
But brother, how can you now share like what? So you're saying, you know, your mom via dance was your introduction to dance, but then you saw these street hitters from the Breeze Team. I guess now maybe share, how did you get affiliated? How did you now see Rocksteady Crew? And then how did your breaking intro / career / journey start from there?
Okay. Well, at that time, it was not so, it's like you had to know somebody who knew somebody, I think, you know, and that time, what I'm saying is basically 94 and 95. And if you were a hip hop head, I guess you would say, you'd be like, oh yeah, you got to go to the Bronx, right? Most of the people in my neighborhood in New Jersey, they were like, they danced before. Like a lot of people that you knew from the 80s who were either from New York or from New Jersey, they have a history in hip hop at some point. They were younger, they did it in the 80s. All of them used to always say, we used to do that. So when I started breaking too, or messing around with it, that's when I started to meet people, you know, because I would do that everywhere. I mean, I was just so into it, you know, publicly, outside, in the park, in my backyard, you know. So word was getting around. I danced in high school, so a lot of the kids in high school would see me. And I eventually started running into more people. So when I ran into this guy who used to break in the 80s, his name was Fast Eddie, Eddie Maldonado. He owned a barbershop and a salon, and he called it Headspins, actually. So he used to do the girls' updos and named them after like breaking moves, basically.
Wow.
So the Bronx Twist and all this stuff, the girls were like coming with these crazy hairstyles, and he named them after dance moves. This is in Clifton, New Jersey. So he was mentioning the Bronx to me. I was also into other things besides breaking at first. So I liked to play basketball. I got into Taekwondo, boxing, stuff like that. I met my boy who was teaching Taekwondo at the time. His name was Dino Mike. And he was like, yo, you got to come to New York with me, you know, if you want to like really get, you know, more into this breaking thing. So he took me to Hunts Point, and it was at the community center where I learned how to break. That's where I met Legs. That's where I met everybody in the scene, basically.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So then you meet Legs, and now, you know, we fast forward a bit, and you're the vice president of Rocksteady Crew. How, why, what, was that even a plan? Was it something you wanted to do? It just came onto your lap just because you're so dope and cool. I don't know. What was it? What was your
I bribed them.
like?
That's what happened.
You bribed
I paid them. That's how I got
that.
No, I think it was inevitable. I think not the vice president thing, but at least to be down in the crew was, because I hung around them pretty often. I mean, immediately when I met Legs, he took a liking to what I was doing. Same thing with Mr. Wiggles, and they both pretty much mentored me into this whole thing, as well as the other guys that I met in Jersey, like Dono Mike and the other crew that I was affiliated with, Rock with Finesse. But even that crew, like they saw that I was like kind of talking to Rocksteady, and they were excited about that. Like they were like, yo, you got to go hang out with Legs and get all the knowledge you can, and this, and they were really supportive, which I'm super happy for. But I didn't get down into Rocksteady till way later, man. Not until 2005, you know. But so I already known Legs for about 10 years, and you know, he became a really important person to me in my life. But you know, I think there was also this energy around hip hop and breaking, because it was starting to come back in a way.
Yeah.
And you know, there wasn't like a future. There was no vision for that. So, you know, I was like, man, I'm thinking about going to school. I got other things I need to do. I got to think about my life, my career, whatever that may be, you know? So I just think like that whole movement didn't start to really build until you got into the later 90s.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree. And, you know, because we're talking about breaking and hip hop, I mean, I what I've always I admired about you, Why Not, is really your whole approach on the dance period. Every time I see you dance, at least from my lens, I'm not a beat girl in the sense where I could do floor work and, you know, do tricks or do any of the top rocks really. It's such a different craft, I feel, in another way. But watching you, I was always so used at one point, just people just right away going to the floor, doing their tricks, having like 20-second rounds, boom, they were done. You were one of the first where I really felt took your time. And then you're doing things like the salsa rock and things that right away I was able to identify with and just really explore the essence of the dance first, and then the floor, and then everything else from the tricks came later. Who inspired you in that approach? Was that just something innate in you because of how you grew up with your mom? But I just, till this day, I feel you make it a point to show your essence with dance first, and then everything else. Who was a big influence? What was it? How did it click for you in that way?
I think it was just I have to give it up to the community itself, and just the, you know, the stories that were being told to me. And then just, I got into dance more socially before I even was like breaking, you know, I was just socially dancing. Like, I just think like dance itself is very simple and you have to do it with people, which is why I'm probably the most non-dancing dancer at this point, right? I got excited about breaking when I was younger because of the energy behind it. But if you see me these days, I'm not like dancing around everywhere. Like, you know, if people are around and the energy is there, I want to participate. But I don't have much motivation sometimes to dance on my own as much, because it's a social thing for me. And I feel weird almost, like practicing was a weird thing to me. It still is to this day. You know, I understand breaking is at such a high level physically at this point now, but there's something about that I can't get down with 100%, because I have value in the connection to the music. I have value in this understanding what that means and how to communicate with each other in that way. So it's just something that I deem really important, and I just stick to that. You know what I mean?
And yes, I mean, I love that you're bringing up the social aspect of the dances, because it is that first. That's the love of this dance and this culture. It's been built from the social aspect. So I totally see you embracing that. And I just have vivid memories of seeing you in a few ciphers. I mean, not to promote, you know, holding beers in the hands all the time for the youth. But I have the memories of you holding a drink.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, brother. Now it's tea. Now it's hot tea.
Coffee all day.
Okay.
But I remember this round where you were holding a drink and the drink doesn't fall, and you went to the floor, but the ability to just move to the music and just straight up and why not? Your round was long. It's not like you just went 10 seconds. You took your time.
That's what's
You're
up.
doing the whole 360. I just feel there's always been an old soul to you, to approach to the dance, but maybe it's because of your essence and love for music and your understanding for music as well, because there's definitely also musicality and level of understanding of music that's, I think, very beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So
you know, and I also agree with not promoting the drinking situation, but it just shows you how it was for me. To, drinking to me is a social thing. You know, again, I wouldn't drink by myself at home. You know what I'm saying? Like going out and just like, vibing, and like, it's important. It's important to me. It's always been like that, which is why I do feel a little strange at events. Nowadays, I try to connect with the youth right now, because I know that, for them, it's different. Like what they're doing now is a little bit different than maybe how we did it back in the 90s or even before us, right? So I'm just trying to understand, but very much for me, I just want to have a good time. It was a party for me most of the time.
It shows in your movement, and it shows in your dance, brother, always.
That's what's up. Thank you. I try to keep that even now, like even if I'm battling or whatever, and I think people are very serious about dance right now, which I also appreciate. But I have a different connection for it, and I enjoy myself a lot. And it's a way for me to express many things, but I try to have a good time every time.
And I guess, I mean, this is not even a part of the script of what we emailed you, but I guess this is my own personal question. because you're coming from such a social background and having fun, having a party, talking about battles, because we are with the new generation and they're more familiar with the organized battles and structure. What is your take on breaking in the Olympics when, if it makes it through? Like, what is your take on it? That's just my own personal question.
I know we're off script now.
Yeah.
I know I emailed you. I told you this might happen.
It's now considered, because now it will be considered more of a sport, more of like a highlight thing, instead of like really people that are going to watch it in the Olympics. They're not going to understand the culture. They're not going to understand the essence, the music. So what's your take on all that?
It's so difficult to even think about what that's gonna look like, And I've seen the Youth Olympic Games a couple years back, where they first kind of, showed what it's a possibility of what it might look like. But it's hard to say exactly for me how I feel about it. I think maybe for, like I said, this generation, it's a little bit different. I think maybe they are growing up differently. I don't think dance is as social, or at least not in the same way that we would think about it.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to see the benefit for who's participating right now, I also have to appreciate some of it, because I do know the hard work it takes to get to a certain level.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think anyone who competes understands that, nowadays it's not like dancing in the cypher.
No.
It's completely different. I mean, you're on stage, you're coming from thousands of miles away, 13-hour flights. Getting off that flight, you have to go rounds with people, with the lights on, and who knows. It's incredible what it's been doing. So I see the good and the bad in it. I'll just say that for now, but it's gonna happen for sure. I know that. So the best thing that I'm trying to do is how do I move forward with that moving forward, and what does it do to what it is that I do now, and how can I contribute in a way to help preserve still, because for me it's about preservation. I'm very interested in keeping certain thoughts, ideas, people in mind as we move forward, because sometimes we forget about those things. And yeah, that's all I can say. I'm just really thinking about how I'm going to approach it as somebody in this game right now. So
I mean, I just hope, I'm glad we brought up that question, and what I manifest is that people like you or Crazy Legs are at the table for these conversations, especially if it goes to the essence of the Olympics. Because if we just let it come from one mindset, one lens, one approach, I just hope that folks like you that have contributed the time, have put in so much time, know so much, and are so big about preserving the dance as a whole, that you guys are also at the table. So I think even a bit, maybe, I don't know if it's even a question, but what could we do to even support that, to make sure folks like you are there? It's needed, because then they take over and they will make it. And dance has already in many ways suffered. I see the pros and cons too with TV shows and all that as well, but it's important to have a representative of the community to be at the table.
That's one of the reasons why I decided to go into the whole school, university education aspect of it, because I think that's one of the ways that we can in a way fight things happening that may be out of our control after a while, because very easily we may not get invited to the table, no matter who we are, what we've done, because it's now it's not really necessarily governed or created by us anymore, that whole entity now moving into the Olympics. Like it could change. It could very easily change. Because it's also now such an international thing, and that's another thing we have to take into consideration. Like for me, I decided to pull back a bit, especially internationally, and think a little bit more about America. And the university is, I think, now the perfect place to get those ideas across, to really then take research seriously, talk about preservation, archiving, all of that kind of stuff. And through American University, I think would be a smart move, at least better than just trying to start some campaign to go up against something like the Olympics. I mean, to me, it's like, I don't even see that happening.
I
You know what I'm
see.
saying? Yeah.
I
So
mean,
you got to be strategic, you know?
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
I mean, this easily leads into the next question then, in a sense. Could you tell our audience and educate us a bit more about your journey with school? I believe you got your bachelor's, and again, you just recently just got your master's. And give us a little, you know, essence of what your master's was about and a little bit about your focus there.
Okay. It's funny because I did go back to school for dance, even though what I was doing with my degree was experimenting with ideas of industrial design and taking like design elements and moving it into architecture. That's eventually where I really want to go with things. I think that's really why I wanted to go back to school to begin with.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
and that's just because of all the other things that I have interest in, right? So
Yeah.
dance again, like going back to how I feel about the social aspect of it. I think I'm heavy on that because it's not something that I think about only, you know, and I know that there's a generation or people that are very hardcore about dance, and they're like, this is what I do, and they get very deep into the technique of things and et cetera, and I dig that. But I also come from a different perspective as hip hop as a whole, right? So when I'm writing and I'm thinking about letter forms, when I'm thinking about dance, when I'm thinking about music, it's all encompassing. So I wanted to further explore what that was, because also my mentors besides Legs and Wiggles have been Mayor 139. Like, these are graffiti writers, you know, Kel First, one of the first writers I met. They were influencing me around the same time that I started breaking. So it was all just kind of going like this. And so I think I'm exploring by going back and trying to figure out my journey from the beginning and then seeing where these things can go. But I also feel ultimately, and this is the reason why I went back to school again for architecture, is that we don't often explore the things that we've learned through this as anything other than entertainment sometimes, right? There's knowledge in this stuff to move yourself forward physically, mentally, but then also building. We have to build what it is that we want to see, right? For example, and I believe hip hop has done that from the beginning. And why do I say architecture? Is because I physically actually want to build, you know, and I think it's important for people who live in America to start to think about building their environment, you know. Coming from my neighborhood, going into other people's neighborhoods, then traveling internationally, I realized like there's spaces that people feel comfortable, and then there's spaces where people don't. And for those that are not comfortable, why aren't we teaching them how to build their environments? Why are we not giving them the tools to be able to create the environment that they see as theirs even, you know? Like, there are people that live in America that don't feel comfortable here. And because we don't make it comfortable for them, do we? You see what I'm saying? So that's very important for me now more than ever. And I'm really trying to push that idea and show, I think, because I also think very deeply about timelines. Like, I'm a futurist a lot in how I think. And I know that in my lifetime, I'm only going to get so far with certain ideas. But I'm strategically thinking about what I'm going to leave behind, I guess, for other people to come across at some point and go, I see where he was going. I know where to pick up the ball and move forward. So that's where I'm at. Yeah.
That's not inspiring to hear.
Y'all that are watching, you got to take notes. I'm telling you, he's dropping gems, y'all. He's dropping a lot of gems.
So I got jokes, but I'm serious about my shit.
I know,
I mean?
I know, brother.
I mean, in that way, I just had that respect for you, because I recall the last time I had like a nice, good conversation. Not the last time, we see each other several times, but I was in Santa Barbara with you. Remember, we were judging together. It was you, me, and Showtime.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, congratulations. What are you doing in school? And I was just mad inspired because, you know, Lee and I, we're teaching at UCLA. We're teaching in the dance department now. And that's been passed down from our mentors like Renny and Sabella, you know, for making space in that way. And for me, as being like the first Latina teaching in that department and then teaching hip hop, you know, in that sense, I take so much integrity in that and what that means, but also there's a lot of responsibility. So
Right.
I'm just getting really excited to see my peers, my colleagues, folks like you, Moncel, Sabella, Tiffany Bong, all of us managing this institute that necessarily wasn't built for us.
Right.
And
Right.
how we navigate through it, you know. And it's
Absolutely.
still a constant fight till this day, especially for all our POCs, people of color, that are dealing with so much in their lives as a whole. So I love how you came up with this whole concept of building, because building, to me, there's so many approaches to that, and how you build from an actual building to an actual nonprofit to just building your own legacy, building your own dance. Like, so hearing you speak from that lens, it's just inspiring. And I manifest that we as a team, hopefully this is the beginning of many more conversations to keep building, because we are the first generation that's now building the bridge from our mentors to the next us.
Right.
Yeah.
Bridges,
the
for
bridge
sure.
to navigate and hopefully make these spaces more comfortable and more welcoming, and know that it's for everybody, you know, because college for me was definitely a different experience. I'm surprised I even made it, but I had a son, so I was like, heck no, I need to do this, you know. And we all have I'm sure all of us have different stories, but to hear your approach and why you did it is just really inspiring, and inspiring for me, because you're just also a badass artist as a whole. So here you're managing, you know.
Yeah. I mean, we were joking before we got on. I was like, I swear, I feel like he's one of the few now in our generation that represents all 9 elements of hip hop culture. I was like, I gotta ask him if he's an MC, because if he isn't, I swear, I mean, he speaks a language. He's an entrepreneur himself. Like, damn. I mean, you are.
Do you MC?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you do, brother.
I've dabbled with it. I definitely have stuff in my phone notes right now, but I don't know. Like, there's certain things that's such a super saturated element that I usually leave that last.
I hear you. No, I mean, that's true. I mean, I like that you brought that up, Lee, because one of the assignments for my students, at least at UCLA, because hip hop is just so new. Lee and I come in and they think they know what hip hop is.
Yeah, and we're 5, 6, 7, 8, bro.
And we're like, boom! And they're like in shock. Like, what is this? You know?
I love it.
Start throwing elements at them. Yeah. And one of my assignments is to do a research paper on artists that are in the community that relate to those 9 elements, or if not, at the very least 3 to 5, and how are they? And show me examples so they could start thinking bigger than what they see in the mainstream, you know?
100%. Open their minds, you know, they need that.
Yeah. All my students, why not's one of them, you know, who to write about.
Yeah.
So
moving on to the next question. Talking about building, I'm also going to kind of shift it to creating. So you do create work. You create a lot of theater work at the same time, you know. Can you share a little bit more about what has been your most work that you've been proud of? Like, what is the work so far right now? Because what I'm hearing you, like, you're such a futuristic guy, so I know you have a lot of goals, and I'm like, it's inspiring for me to hear. But up until this point, where could you look back and be like, yeah, I'm proud of that work? You know, whether it's theater work, community work,
art, dance, installation, I don't know, because you do everything. I mean, I almost want to have a whole other work, like, just talk on all the things that you do.
We can do a part 2 some other time.
Yes, we can. Yes.
You know, to be honest, I'm not proud of all of it yet. I'm not. There's a lot of things that I've always wanted to do, and I haven't even gotten there yet. In a way, I'm just getting started to get into the things that I really want to do. And I say that because, you know, when you're dealing with stuff, especially with design, there's a lot to it. It's you need financial backing. You need to have resources. You need to have the know-how. And I'm just starting to kind of get to a point with that. And I've had these ideas for over 15 years already. So in a way, I feel behind the ball. But it's not a sad thing or anything like that. I'm very excited about the future because I know I'm well on my way. So it's like, it's a matter of time. And I can definitely say that. And if those of you that know me or just, I'm getting just on your radar now, just watch, because I got a lot of wild stuff coming up and it's going to be pretty ill, you know, and I'm hoping that I get to collaborate with people like yourselves, everybody in the scene, because I have an idea too to help glue a lot of things together and that would be something I'd be more proud of when I start to do things like that. So yeah.
Well, that's humbling to hear.
Yeah.
There's something about Philly cats. They just never proud of all their work, man. I don't know. That's been my experience lately.
Yeah, we don't give it up for other people as well as our own selves. So I mean, that's just how it's been for years, you know.
Well,
Yeah.
that just shows just how you're just always striving for more. I mean, honestly, audience, why not is super young as well. You're from our generation. It's not like you're 50, you know. I just want to make that clear. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I just turned 39, April 17th.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday, brother. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw it was a quarantine birthday. You had like your own little party.
You already know.
All I saw was like your Adidas chanclas. I call them chanclas, your sandals, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like,
I got all types. I got every color.
There you go. But yeah, you're super young. I think there's so much more to keep discovering, especially with all this access and information and resources that you're gaining. Because I think that's the advantage of going to school. It just opens other doors too. Also, you're right. The whole sense of finances. It's a whole other ballgame to write grants, get money. I mean, you're preaching in a choir.
Yeah.
I mean, we just got a grant, and we just heard the news 2 days ago from the California Arts CAC, California Arts Council.
Council.
And I was like, yes! Oh,
that's what's up. Congrats.
especially now with the COVID-19, you know, and
yeah, no, absolutely. Yep.
it was just a big deal. And then for me, it was an honor because one of our students who's in Versatile Next Generation, and she's also a student at UCLA, helped us write the grant. And I just realized it's like the only way to go about it. It takes a village to hold this whole thing together. We can't do it all. And I think hearing you speak, I think the best thing, or not advice to you, but I think as a whole and reminders for us is how could we find access to other folks that could help support our vision as well.
Get your team together. Get your team together. Yeah.
And then I love what you said that. And I know I manifest, I'm having dreams of working with you.
Absolutely.
We do, why not? I mean, you're like such an incredible
We've been
dancer.
talking about it for
I
a
know
while.
we talked
We're
about
gonna
it
make
for a
it happen.
while.
We're gonna make it happen.
Yes.
It'll happen.
Yes.
Because I remember in UCLA wanting more dancers and teachers. I'm like, why not? Do you live in Cali? Like anything like to see. There could be a power to us for our age to really, you know, do things. I mean, you're 38, he's 39, I'm 40. Boom! We got
Perfect. See that? It's already set.
I want you to build us our school, and we all just create our whole hip hop university, and that's certificated and accredited by us. Like, I'm just, it's just so much room for anything, you know. So
100%.
I love that. And I mean, with all that said, because you do a little bit of everything really quick, because there's so many young people listening to, how do you balance it all? How do you balance with the drawing and the music and the dance and school and work, I'm assuming?
And business, your own business entity.
Give me some sense of how do you balance it all? Because everyone's interpretation of that is a little bit different.
Yeah, and it's not as easy as it may look, I think. You know, there's a lot of sacrifice there. That's probably the first word I would put above the other words that I can think of how it works or how I can make it work. But sacrifice is one of the biggest things. And I don't know if people get to see that side of it, you know. And it's sacrificing a lot of, I think, your own personal wants and needs in a lot of ways, you know. And that's probably a bit of why I might feel behind the ball a bit, because it's just something that, in a way, I've chased for a while. But I also knew that if I kind of slacked or lacked, I would not be able to get to the points that I've been, you know, crossing at this moment in my life. So, yeah, that's a big thing. You got to be on point. You have to mentally and physically stay on par. That takes a lot of you know, soul searching time with yourself, understanding where you are, how to move forward in certain situations. You got to build relationships with people. Okay, that also helps you. You don't just go around and, you know, spitting your opinion out all the time. That doesn't help you in the long run. You have to understand that you are functioning within this, you know, larger community, but then also you're in the world. You're out here. You know, you have to know. You got to know how to, you know, maneuver through this stuff, and do research all the time. You know, we may think we know everything, but we really don't. There's so much stuff for us to learn. And even when we start to be calling ourselves teachers or facilitators, you know, sometimes we spend so much time teaching that we forget to learn on our own, right? So you can stagnate yourself in a lot of ways by doing that. So sometimes you got to give that energy and then know when to walk away from that for a minute, you know, and do your thing. So there's a lot to it, for sure. But, you know, just getting into it, and you got to play, you got to, like, process is what it is for me, basically, you know.
Yeah.
Enjoy all of that. Enjoy the ups, the downs. Like, they all are informative to where you're about to go and what you've been doing. So, you know, take everything to account, because it's helping you grow.
Absolutely.
You know.
I love that. I mean, I love how you touch first on sacrifice, because it's something we don't really highlight too much. Kind of tied in with what Renny said, you know, first talk, you know, do this, you know, talk about the struggle, show the struggle, embrace it, but then celebrate it, you know. And in many ways, that sacrifice part is I think the part that we don't get to see on Instagram, or we don't get to see, you know, on social media. You know, usually on social media, you see like the end result, the good thing, the final product, or something good happened. I got this thing. Oh my God. But we don't share the sacrifices and the mental state of where we're at in that moment. And that's real too. And how could that be informative? So that sacrifice and being on point with soul searching. Sorry, I'm like being a teacher. I'm trying to like kind of get everything you said and put it in a sentence, but it's all intertwined. And then also, like you said, enjoying the process, because it is a journey. It's constant.
Yeah.
So,
nonstop. Yeah.
Enjoy the process.
Yeah.
And you got to keep going. You can't stop. Like I see a lot of people, not saying that you can't have emotions. I mean, you can be emotional about the things or the hardships and stuff like that, but you have to continue. You know, when you know that you're meant to do this, you won't stop. And, you know, they can take everything away from you, and you should be able to still keep going. You know what I mean? So.
And and then also how to keep being a student in that way. Because I mean, I've caught myself a few times that I give, and that wipes the shit out of me. Excuse my language, everybody. Sorry, but it wipes me out, because I'm not feeding my soul for the constant growth that I need to take to then be a better teacher. It's a constant full circle in that sense too.
Well, especially now, I think as artists, we're always being needed of something. So people are always taking. So how do we as artists, how can we collect ourselves, find a moment for ourselves, breathe, and then just make sure that we are good inside before we can give back to others? You know what I mean?
You have to protect your energy, you know. I don't know if enough people understand too. Like, sometimes I have conversations with other b-boys, other people. They'd be like, "Oh, why not? I want to do what you're doing," you know. And I'll be like, "Do you?" Like, do you understand what that entails? I mean, you know, I know a lot of people dig the way I dance, things like that, and I appreciate that. But what's crazy about it is that I've sacrificed even my own personal growth in dance just so I can share as much as I have. I mean, people don't understand the travel, the not eating properly, the not sleeping, you know, and of course, like, I need money. Yeah, for sure. This is why I do things as well. But I can very easily just say no and just do whatever I want to do at the same time. And, you know, stay at home and practice and do all these things and come back in the next battle and have all this new footwork that you've never seen before. But, you know, after a while, I enjoyed the sharing, the giving, the learning. And that was the big part for the travel for me, that the more I shared, the more I also received. But then I also realized after a while, I have to kind of turn things off and get some more energy again, so that I can go back out there and share again, because it was killing me.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I mean, I mean, this whole quarantine thing and the COVID-19, I'm not saying it's devastating what's happening to our world and economy as a whole, but I on a personal level, I was at a breaking point before this, because people don't get the sacrifices of the admin, the business, this whole AB5 law that had to kick in with the payroll and paying artists. Like, and then who does that fall on? It falls on us with our team, executive team, and the dancers that have no idea what it takes to funnel that and make that happen. Or our spaces, like studio spaces, I could go on. Admin has taken so much away for me, at least. And constantly finding that balance, so then I could still be relevant to the community and the dance, because that's why I do it in the first place.
100%. Yeah, they won't see that part. And then sometimes you also don't feel comfortable with sharing that, because then it sounds like you know, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, please recognize these other things I need to do in order for me to be here to begin with, you know?
Yeah.
So I just wish that like conversations like these would happen more, and then people might be more aware of the other things that we're doing. We're not just showing up and dancing all the time. That's actually the last thing we do.
Yeah.
Everything prior to that is like all this other stuff that has nothing to do with dance.
Yeah.
You know,
and those are all skill sets to hopefully keep giving opportunities to our next generation for a better future.
100%.
Still promoting the arts, but still there's other skill sets we need to develop.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
you just can't dance and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, don't get me wrong, but there's more to it if you want to last the longevity of it and in running like the business and an entity or even yourself, because that's practice in itself.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking on that, because I mean, we're way off script in that way, but since you're saying all this, what's next for you? So right now you got your master's. You never went back to the East Coast. I think you're in Arizona now still, right?
I am. Yep.
You know, are you planning to move to LA? Like what? What is next? Have you thought about it, or you you're just present in the moment and
wherever the wind blows.
There
No,
you
I'm just
go.
kidding. I'm gonna go where the opportunities are at this point, you know. And I think what I'm speaking mainly about is full-time position for university right now. That's what I'm gunning for, I would say.
I'm gonna be in the lookout. Good, I'm gonna be in the lookout for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see. I've had some
Universities
interesting like conversations and offers, right? So we'll see. But I also think it's important for us to spread out a bit, right? So I was like kind of also aiming towards USC in California as well, because that's, you know, people like Sabela Mansell, they blew the door open there. You guys, you know, you at UCLA. So, but at the same time, I'm also thinking like this is, if I think about America as a whole and where we're going with this education thing, we gotta be out there. We gotta be spread out.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
Unless if we're gonna centralize like that, then let's just have our own school. That's how I feel about it. You know what I mean? So.
And you're gonna build it for us.
I will. Somebody will. If it's not me, somebody will. You know.
That's right. And you know, and shout out to Sabela, because he's actually on right now. You know,
is he trolling us? Is he
now.
trolling me? Because I was trolling him before.
Yeah. He's kind of teasing us because we're all wearing black right now. He didn't know that you know, he missed the memo of
gang
black. You know what I'm saying? So, but shout out to Sabela. If y'all don't know him, please follow him. Y'all mean Supreme, talented brother.
We're gonna have
Sabela wears too many patterns.
Yeah,
I love that guy.
Yeah.
Sabela, you know, so this, just so you know, Sabela married us, so that's how much we love this guy. Like
I saw that. That's
he
wild.
gave us the most beautiful ceremony, but just everything he's provided for us in our lives and our careers as a person. I could go on about him too.
Absolutely.
And going back on what you were saying, I do agree. We need to spread out more, because especially right now, there's this momentum and sense where every university is trying to hire, or they're claiming that they're teaching hip hop or hip hop dance, hip hop history. And, you know, I have a lot of question marks with a lot of the folks that are teaching. And then here I have people like you where I know, okay, you did your work, you got your master's, here you are. Yeah, you need to be in these universities, and it might take a sacrifice of going to a different state that might be LA. And I say sacrifice because I just can't see myself living in Utah or something like that. Not that
I'll go to Utah. I'll go anywhere. You know, and I think because of how much I feel about, like, I'm really standing on that, and we need to hit all areas, you know. So I'm down to go wherever. And I also think I need to be just take what comes to me, because it's also very difficult for me as a white male to move forward in this type of business, you know. In a lot of ways, I'm not, even just by my resume, whatever, or they can just simply take my photo and go, I don't think this guy's going to help our diverse situation we need to fix here in our dance community. So there's a lot of things also against me, I think, in a way, but I just need to keep going forward. So, you know, yeah, I'm gonna take whatever doors open.
The right places. You're gonna be at the right place at the right time. I have no doubt it has to happen.
That's right.
You know, in that sense, because you're right. I know a lot of these schools are huge on this whole, you know, equity, you know, and equality for all, you know, and representation.
It's a good thing, you know. They're aware of it at least now, so it's good.
Yeah,
more than ever. At least trying.
Step in the door.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I know.
I'm never like mad at any conversations that are happening with any of that stuff. I get confused sometimes with the way people I think about things, which is why I'm always like, I still question everything. Even when I do think that it's a good or a bad thing, I don't know sometimes, I just have to look deeper into every situation that I come in contact with. But yeah, it's really good that it's on people's radars at this point. America is definitely changing. People are starting to wake up to the weird stuff that's been set here for years, so we'll see.
And we need that. And I personally take pride in that. I speak on it every day.
As you should. Yeah, that's what's up,
Especially being as a first generation woman in that way, I think it's something I relate to, and I get it. It's needed, so
100%.
But then again, I know there's the right places that you'll find the right place at the right time, especially with everything that you represent in hip hop culture as a whole. It's gonna come.
Yeah,
it's bound to come. And I love that you're thinking bigger. I'm being selfish where I'm like, come to LA, come to Cali, but
I would love that too, though. I love LA, so
But who knows? Watching me here in LA in 6 months, he's like, "Oh, Jackie, I'm moving."
Probably.
But moving forward into our audience, if you have any questions, because we got about 9 minutes left. If you have any questions,
yeah, fire away.
Fire away. But just to kill some time until they start asking, maybe one more question on our end, and I'm just gonna pick one of them. Is there a person you look up to that you would love to share the stage or dance floor with, and why? Like somebody that you haven't shared the floor with or the stage with, and who would you share that with if you had that moment?
Oh man, I've shared some experiences with this person, but in terms of like actually really sharing the stage, like to where we can probably exchange, would be Poppin' Pete.
Woo!
Be Poppin' Pete. He's been a big inspiration to me as a dancer, but also just as a person. He's a great person. I love his energy. Yeah, I think he's one of my favorites. That would just be an honor.
That would be epic.
We call him Uncle Pete.
Yeah. Uncle Pete for sure.
It's admirable to know his age, and he has a soul of a young. It's incredible. I could go on and talk about.
I can still smoke all of us in Pop.
Oh my gosh, it's not even funny. Like he starts moving, and it's
just unreal.
I start flipping through my screen like, my gosh. I like his stuff before I even watch it. That's how crazy it is. Like I'll come across like one of his posts, and I already double tap it, and then I'll watch it.
Yep.
I don't wait I'm like, you got that. Let me see what's going on. Crazy. Mind blown already,
I hear it.
I'm going to manifest that, just to plant the seed. We were supposed to have our big 15th anniversary festival in April, and that got canceled due to the COVID-19. We're trying to postpone for later in the fall, but at this point, I'm learning I can't plan more than 30 days ahead, But I know Poppin' Pete was going to be one of our judges and stuff. Ooh. And not only was he going to be a judge, this was going to be the first time where we got some sponsorship support to have a panel discussion with Poppin' Pete, Buddha Stretch, Link, Khalif. Amazing. And now I'm thinking, man, I need to bring you in because on the third day, I'm just planting the seed. There's like a stage theater performance. Maybe you and Pete could do something. I don't know, just put it out there. Never know. I start thinking like that. That's how I like building. You give me an idea, and I'm like,
That's awesome. Keep that in there.
We might have to sell some admission tickets for that.
That's what I'm saying.
But we had a question from Full Out, our brother Full Out Harry. He said, "Why is it important for hip hop to be in the college setting? Why do you think?"
Great question. There's a couple reasons. For one, because this is an American created based art form. So it makes sense for it to be an American university and taught and shared. Also, a lot of stories in America are usually shared that don't include everybody. There's many reasons, actually. I keep going down the line. But then also, it's going to happen regardless. Yep. Just like how it's happened in most dance schools, where all of a sudden, okay, hip hop's a thing. Now you have a teacher in every dance school. If you really think about 50 states, right? America has 50 states. There's 50 major universities.
Yep.
If you had to pick 50 representatives of each dance form and put them in each one of those 50 states, are there 50 qualified people to be teaching these dance forms? And we're talking about history, cultural, technique. We can go down the line. If you teach in a university, you know it's not like a workshop. You have 11 classes, possibly you'll be with these students. You're writing curriculum, you're creating visual materials to learn from, you're giving them resources to other things. It's not just about you. You know, there's lots of things there. And if we don't start doing it, or some of us don't start infiltrating in that way, then someone else will do it. And imagine what that's going to look like.
Absolutely.
And it's a constant, I mean, for us, it's already a constant battle in that sense, you know, because it's about building curriculum. It's about lesson planning. It's about knowing what you're going to teach. And we're just coming from a dance perspective. I mean, I know they've approached us for maybe hip hop history, and I don't take that lightly because there's so much, you know, and there's no way that I can even take that on after I have someone like Rennie Harris and Ken Swift teach it. I take, you know, I have that responsibility and awareness where I know integrity in that sense, you know. So, but you're right. If we don't do it, who will, though? And it's going to happen no matter what. So even as I hear you speak, Whiteout, it inspires me because I just want to get better. I know I'm so blessed to be at UCLA. So how could I make it better?
But what's even crazy is that how, you know, because I kind of peeped in on this discussion with you and Monsell. I think it was you, Monsell, or maybe it was Sabela, but it's like, that's only a glimpse in the door of hip hop dancing culture. It's not like they're really going to be a hip hop practitioner. It's just for them to maybe, again, we're like the bridge or the facilitators are like, this is what our culture, this is what our dance is about. Now it's time to go out there and do your own research. But yeah, I'm 100% with you, brother.
Yeah, it's merely an introduction, but also we have to think about, so if you've taught in the university, you also know that there are many of those students come in with prior training, which means, and most of them are female, right? Because, you know, guys play basketball and females dance, right? So you will go into the dance program. Okay, what are you going to say?
No, I know, guy. I already know what you're going to say.
Okay. So when they get into class, some of them have history of dance or training in ballet, et cetera, since they were 4 years old, 5 years old. It goes back as that far. Now, when I started learning how to break, I was 14 years old, right? Some of my students started when they were 7, you know. People like Bell Rock started when he was about 5, you know what I mean? But what's important that is not about just the university, but once we start to get this seriously going in America, that we'll have people who have trained years already by the time they make it to the university, and then we can take their knowledge to the next level at that point. Boom. But it's an introduction for a lot of people at this time because most of the dancers in there have never gotten this type of experience before. You know? And then the more it becomes that, then you have those students or you have those people who have learned it in their community since they were about 4 or 5 years old. Now they have an opportunity to go to school through dance and stuff like that. Right? So like it just starts to make sense after a while.
And I believe in that. I mean, with Versatile, our mission has been to build that pipeline. So we're introducing these kind of programs when they're in middle school and high school. Therefore, when by the time they get to college, I remember when most of their students got to UCLA, Sabella's like, yo, who are all these? I'm not gonna lie, I was like, they're from our squad.
Boom.
They're our people. But because I saw the long picture, I see that building block in a sense of creating a pipeline to guide these students, first generation students, to have that opportunity.
Straight up, that's needed. So even if you teach in university, like I'm teaching there, like my workshops don't stop. This kid that I run into in the community center, I don't stop from teaching that kid. That continuously goes because we're moving everything forward, right? That needs to happen that way. And then finally, when you get trained dancers in the university, think about the types of work you can make